So I'm going to show you how to do couching, and this is where we're going to attach some other items. So in this case we're going to attach some wool. So for couching it's very simple. I've secured my thread at the back, and then I've used a dark purple for this because I'm hoping it'll show up really nicely. So you come over, you do a very straight stitch, and you just hop over the top of whatever it is that you're attaching, and you just make a little stitch, and then you come down on a diagonal, back up again on the other side, and back over, and you just do, oops, let go, and you just do another straight stitch. Now I'm doing quite big increments in between. You can do much smaller increments if you want to. I would normally be doing this the other way around, so I keep knocking my hand into things. And you can change direction. So if you were doing, you can do lettering with this quite easily. So I'm going to just change direction here. I'm going to take my wool over here. I'm showing you on a hoop because it's easier, I think, when you've got nice stretched tension as well, for you to see what I'm doing. So then I'm going to turn it right the way around here, look. So can you see you can go in all sorts of different directions for couching. It's a lovely, easy way of adding something on, and you can add sticks, you can add wool, you can add cord, you can add ribbon, anything that you just want to attach to the surface but not actually use to stitch. So that's couching, that's all you do. It's very simple. So to create the French knot, I'm using the hoop again just because it's slightly easier to show you. So where you've come out, you're going to go in very near where you've come out. But before you go back in, you're going to wrap the thread around the needle. So 3 or 4 times, so you're winding it around the needle. Okay, be careful not to stab yourself. And then when you've wound it round, you want to take that needle back down as close to the fabric as possible, slide the needle back without sliding all the stitches off, and then push it back through your fabric. And what you end up with is a little bobble. So I'll do one more. So we come out and then wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, slide the needle right back down onto the fabric, slide the stitches to almost to the end, and then back in virtually where you came from, give it a tug, give it a pull, and there's your French knot. You can do some gorgeous stitching with French knots. I've seen slow stitching where all they've used are French knots. Got students that love them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, slide them down, keep your tension, slide your needle into your fabric, give it a tug, and there you go, French knots. Simple. So we're going to do a very basic version of Sachiko stitching, which is a lovely Japanese stitch that's used to create texture. And I've started off with a very basic running stitch here. It's not terribly straight, but don't bear with me for that one. And I'm just going to go back in here and finish that line. And then to create the Sachiko stitch, you come in underneath, back up, level with the stitch you've just done, and you follow that stitch line that you've already created. Just make it a bit more level. Back the way you came. As I said, this is a very simplified version, and I haven't done any measurements. So Sachiko stitching, when you do it properly and when you're doing it for real, you want to be very accurate and make sure that your stitching is very well paralleled. And one of the things that you can do is draw yourself a grid using a friction pen, heat sensitive pen, and then once you've finished your stitching, you can then iron the grid out. So can you see, it's literally just in and out where you've already been, and you start to form a pattern. What you also do is create some really lovely integrity in your fabric. This is a really good mending stitch for things like worn jeans and so forth, and I've used it a few times. So you create pattern. Now you can change direction if you want to. You can switch, and I'll just come up in the middle somewhere here. So you can switch direction and you just do the same again. You do a running stitch, finish the stitch. I'm really sorry if you can hear a strange noise in the background. My dog's having a good old foot wash. She's in here with me. I'm sure you'll meet her at some point. And then back in again. And you can create the most incredible patterns. You can go diagonally, you can spiral. So the key is just to keep it nice and level and as a good pattern. So that's a very simple Sachiko stitch. A blanket stitch is one of those stitches that I constantly get asked, how do you do it? How do you start it? So I'm going to turn this upside down. So I've come out here. I'm going to come in underneath that stitch and back where I started. So that's my first stitch. And from then on, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to do it squared. So this distance needs to be this distance. So you're going to come in the same distance away as you've gone up, level. If you get stuck, actually I can show you. If you're not at all sure, imagine that I'm drawing this with a ruler. Draw yourself 2 lines. You have to imagine that this is a ruler. Okay. And then if you're not at all sure and you want to be really nice and even, and you don't need to be for slow stitching, but if you want to be, imagine that they were drawn with a needle, with a ruler. You just use your tram lines and follow it. So I'm coming in up to the top. I'm going to make sure that this is over here and pull it tight. And again, in, up to the top again, make sure your thread is behind your needle and pull it tight. Now you can have some fun with this. So maybe you want to go closer. So you can go a bit closer, half height, and then the next one you can do full height. Or you can do it like icicles, and you can do a little one and then a long one, and much closer together for icicles, remember. And then 3/4 of the way up, and vary the lengths, and you end up, and then maybe a little further away. So if you were doing a little Christmas house or something like that in the future, can you see? And they're a little bit more random. So there's blanket stitch. When you've finished, you just lock the stitch over. So just go over the last stitch and that just locks it in. Turning a corner, you'll come in like a diagonal, go into the corner, then you'll come in again at the same point and another diagonal, and there's your corner, and then off you go again. There you go. Okay, so there's blanket stitch.